Yeah, I
Right?
was just saying that I just really love your posts because
Hey,
it's so refreshing to see, like my traumas like validated on Instagram. Because mostly, like, you see like things like
yeah.
scriptures and stuff like that. It's just like, oh God, again, kind of thing. Quite triggering for me. So to have, wow, somebody gets it. Somebody actually gets it. Somebody actually talks about spiritual abuse, you know?
Yeah.
Can we talk about it?
It's interesting that you say that because I spent 2 years writing this book.
Yeah.
And I really must say that I did it totally on my own. I didn't know that it was anybody else thinking these kind of things,
Yeah.
especially living in Switzerland, where there is not many evangelical and still less ex-evangelicals. So
Yeah.
when I began to be curious on Instagram and to discover this, hashtag deconstruction or ex-evangelical or things like
Yeah.
that,
It's like,
I was
what, people are
really
actually going
surprised.
through this?
And I was a bit like a kid in the
Candy store.
toy shop, discovering wonderful ideas and people sharing the same experience. So I like to repost things that struck me.
Yeah, really amazing stuff because I actually stumbled across the term spiritual abuse by accident. I didn't even
Mhm,
know that it was a thing. Like, I thought if somebody abused you, like, it's like a physical abuse, a sexual
mhm,
abuse, that kind of thing. But when I was in my marriage, I was like telling my ex-partner, like, you abused me financially, emotionally, psychologically, like all the different things. I just listened, I said, and spiritually. And I
mhm.
thought, is that even a thing, or am I just making it up? And
Yeah.
then I Googled it, and like lots of things were coming up about
Uh-huh,
wolf in sheep's clothing and stuff like that, you know?
uh-huh.
So do you want to tell me a bit about like your personal experience with spiritual abuse and how you ended up
Wow.
writing this fantastic book?
Ah, yes, thank you for saying it's a fantastic book.
Yeah.
um, I could say so many things, but when I began this process of looking back at what I had been through,
Mm.
uh, I realized that I had a lot of memories that I was not paying so much attention to. I was thinking, okay, it's not so heavy, it's not so
Ah,
difficult. And looking back at them, I began to realize how much it had wounded me in very deep ways. The most dramatic memory is one about a healing that I am supposed to have received when I was around 12 years old. Um, I can talk a bit about that if you want, because
yeah.
I had, when I was a kid, a genetic disease in my bone,
Mm.
in my leg. And this disease was making my bone fragile.
Okay.
So I broke it
Every time.
several times. And, it was a burden during all my childhood and teenage years. And because of this broken leg, my legs weren't growing in the same pace. So I was lame as well.
Mm.
And when I was 11 years old, my father, who was very, very much, dedicated into evangelism and okay, it was very, very important for him. He heard about a healer that was coming to our town and to our church.
Wow.
And this healer's specialty was to fix legs.
Wow. Okay.
So he said, okay, you have to prepare and to have faith because Jesus is going to heal you. So we went to this healer and we had this kind of meeting, where he preaches the gospel and everybody is invited to give his life to Jesus, which I did for the 17th or 20th times just to be sure it was really
God.
done. and after that, the calling to healing. And it was like in the circus. I
Mm.
was seated in front of everybody, and the healer, who was a very enthusiastic man, and he was spluttering, and he was sweating, and he was holding my feet and showing the difference of length of my legs.
I think this is a magic trick that they're all using, because this was
Yeah,
actually
yeah, yeah.
done to me.
Totally. You've seen that.
Yeah, and it was done to me too.
It was done to you too.
Yes, this was done to me.
Incredible.
I wasn't born with any genetic disorder. I didn't have one leg shorter than the other
Uh-huh.
or anything, but I think it was like during my pregnancy,
Uh-huh.
my daughter, I think the preacher called me up to the front
Uh-huh.
kind of thing, like,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
woman, come out. God wants to tell you something or whatever.
Mhm.
And he ends up like, I don't know, saying maybe there's something wrong with my baby or something like that. Like he's not growing like
Wow.
good. So he like lies me down on the floor and he's like showing everybody, look at the difference between her legs. He called the other pastor, come and look, can you see this? He said, wow,
Oh,
yes,
Jesus,
look.
not too much, not too much. Stop,
Yeah,
Jesus,
yeah,
stop. It's good.
yeah. And then
Yeah.
he started to like pull my leg to make
Uh-huh.
it like the
Uh-huh.
same.
Exactly the same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I've seen this done to loads of people in the church
Yeah.
before.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And everybody applauding.
wow,
Yeah.
healing.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, Jesus, and so on. And I was a bit frustrated because I was expecting, to have a kind of mystical experience,
Mm.
but it was just the healing. So the day after, we went to the doctor, and he measured my legs, and he said, "No, it's the same. Nothing has changed, and your
Nothing at
genetic
all. So
disease
there was
is
no
there.
difference.
Nothing." And we called the healer, and he said, "Oh, sometimes when it's a difficult case, you've got to ask twice. So come back tomorrow. I've got a meeting in another city." So we took the car and we drove, and everything began exactly the same. The meeting, the calling, the healing, the applause, and nothing changed.
Nothing.
But
Wow.
it's kind of funny. But for the 12 years old I was, I remember when the doctor said, "Okay, nothing has changed." I remember becoming like blank, like collapsing internally.
Hmm.
And when I go back to this moment, I somehow know that it's the moment where I choose to repress my intelligence
Yeah.
and to suppress my emotions
Hmm.
in order to be able to go on with this faith
Hmm.
that was so important for my family's balance, because everybody was hiding so much anxiety, so much even terror of life behind these religious beliefs,
Hmm.
that I knew as a child that if it was taken away from my parents, they would collapse.
Hmm.
So I decided, okay, I repress my intelligence, I repress my feelings, and I'm going to validate that for them, to
Yeah.
the point that I became pastor later.
Oh my goodness. This gets interesting. Tell me about that. How did you become a pastor? Even though you kind of felt inside, okay, I kind of know what's going on here,
Nah, but I
But
didn't know, I was using my intelligence to build explanations,
mm,
you know, and during the years to come, the doctor found some ways to fix it,
yeah.
to make my legs equal again, and they said, okay, the genetic disease with the end of the teenage years, it's going away. Everything is going to be all right.
Mm,
So in some way, I I found this explanation, or my father found this explanation, but I took it totally. That okay, Jesus healed you, but in another way. You
okay.
know, he
So you
didn't do it
attributed your healing
instantly,
not to the
but
doctor, but to
yeah,
the healing that these two
exactly,
healers
exactly.
did.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
maybe
yeah,
it took a few years to actually kick
yeah,
in.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And it's tricky because I had something about spirituality. I was loving this. I was driven to the mystery of the divine and so on.
Mm.
So it was not difficult for me to think of Jesus, but it was so narrow-minded.
Mm.
And in the same way, it was tricky because my family was a very toxic place,
Yeah.
very dark.
Mm.
And the church was a place where I could breathe. It was the youth group. It was the possibility to be with young young people my age without feeling guilty.
Yeah.
It was possible to interact with girls without feeling guilty.
Mm.
All these kind of things that made the church a kind of place of refuge.
Yeah.
So
Almost like a community.
becoming a pastor was something, it was all, I almost didn't have any other choice.
But how? Like, what moment were you like, okay, I want to be a pastor? Was it an influence? Was it an invite? Did somebody invite you and say, hey, you should come and be a pastor? How did it happen? How did you kind of decide, okay, I'm going to follow this route and be a pastor?
I could say that it was, discovering in my youth group
Mm.
this freedom
Yeah.
to interact with other people my age and discovering a role model in the pastor
Mm.
that was, this kind of big brother, father image, good friend,
Yeah.
uh, that I was craving
Mm.
towards, and I think I could have done anything just to be like him.
Mm.
And so becoming a pastor was becoming more and more obvious. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it lasted for 15 years. I was a pastor in an evangelical church for 15 years.
Wow.
And I was quite good at it. I had good moments and the church was going well. But little by little, and I think that's grace, I began to realize, okay, something is going wrong.
Mm. And what
And
was that?
most of it was to begin with my relationship with my ex-wife, because we were both so much wounded. And, it's the evangelical faith that was holding us together.
Yeah.
And okay, it was working in a sense, but we had both of us to repress so much sufferings, so much anger, so much traumas. And our relationship was full of frustration, full of um, bitterness, I can say. So we both realized that we had to do something. It was not possible to ignore it.
Yeah.
We tried to pray it away. We tried to cast every demon that we could imagine, or to do all the inner healing and the
Spirit
spiritual
of
healing
divorce.
that we could imagine, but it was not working.
Yeah.
And then I began to realize how much fear was at the core of my church faith.
Mm.
And I remember my 6-year-old coming back from we call that the Sunday church. It's the church for children. And he was crying and he was crying because the lady that was teaching the Sunday class, she told the children that Pokemon, I don't know if you know Pokemon, okay?
Yeah.
Pokemon was not a good game. It was a bunch of demons under this disguise, this appearance of little beautiful Pokemons.
Wow.
So, and this lady is a very nice and gentle and generous lady, but she told it to the children. And my kid came, my son came crying and desperate because he was loving this game so much.
Yeah.
And I realized, okay, if this is the kind of things we say to our children, it means that there is a lot of fear
A lot.
inside the church.
Yeah.
And the core of our message is maybe not so much grace and God's love and freedom, but maybe the core of our message is fear,
Restriction.
fear of the world,
Mm-hmm.
build walls and barriers and protect yourself and don't become contaminated. And I began to see all the message in another perspective,
Mm.
and to realize that even if I was preaching a lot about grace, about God's love, about freedom, and so on, this same tendency was inside me. I needed to protect myself from many things, and I needed to protect myself from many of what was inside me, you
Mm.
know. So it began little by little with that kind of questioning.
Mm.
And at a point, I think what made the turning point was that I realized, okay, I'm a pastor. I receive money from the church to earn my living. And for this money, I have a job to do.
Mm-hmm.
So I cannot allow myself the freedom I need to ask all the questions that I want to ask.
Yeah.
You see, I cannot allow myself the freedom that I need.
Yeah.
Because even if I say I will give the freedom, I will take this freedom, I will always have a kind of fear that, okay, my income depends on the fact that I satisfy my employers.
Yeah.
You see,
Give them what they want, right?
yeah, give them what they want in a sense, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I realized confusedly that, I said to my church, okay, I ask you 6 months to look for another job, and in 6 months I'm leaving. I give my resignation. So I did it. I was still Christian and evangelical, but I was thinking, okay, I'm going to push some of these questions
Yeah.
further. And they went so much further that I could have imagined, you know. From
Wow.
the moment I took this decision, everything began to deconstruct very, very quickly, to
Wow.
the point that I wasn't able to go to church anymore, and which was a relief for my ex-parishioners, because they, you know, in a question of 10 days, my social network totally disappeared, vanished into the air, and I
Ah.
lost
Mm.
every one of my friends and contacts, and yeah,
Yeah. I was just about to
which
ask
was,
you, how did they react when you started to distance
yeah,
and decided you want to, you know,
I
get
think they were very preoccupied, and they were beginning to think, okay, it's good that this man goes away,
yeah,
because it's going
before
to
he
become
influences the
very,
rest of
very
the
much disturbing. Yeah,
yeah.
they were very relieved, I think.
Hmm. So what kind of things, like when you started to go on like your own personal spiritual journey, and you mentioned that you couldn't really go to church anymore, what kind of things would kind of repel you from that environment?
Ah, you know, I was feeling a bit like a drug addicted.
Mm.
You know, when you, I had some friends that were ex heroin addicted,
Yeah.
and they were totally aware of the fact that if they were coming back to the places they were going before, the temptation to go back to their old habits would be very strong.
Yeah.
And when I was going back to church, it was not the temptation to go back to my old addiction, but
Mm.
it was painful to realize how much these things had, you know, um, filled such void in my life. And in the same time, I was not accepting them anymore. And I was seeing how much of it was toxic.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I really needed, to be away, to be on my own, and to face the void, to face the silence, and the fact that I had doubts instead of certainties. I had questions instead of answers, and it was good for me. It was a kind of healthy deprivation, if you see what I mean.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
definitely. So just
and I,
allow you to like think differently, have
yeah,
time.
yeah, yeah.
It's okay.
Learn to think differently because I never had the opportunity of exploring it. Yeah,
Because by the time you know it, it's Sunday again. You need to do more preaching. You know, you
yeah,
need to read your
yeah,
Bible. You need to do some prayers, prayer
yeah,
meeting, this, that, this,
yeah,
that.
yeah.
It's like constant. You know, when do you ever get that chance to really
Mhm.
think about?
Sit by yourself,
Yeah,
discover new things,
yeah.
explore some. Yeah,
Enjoy things, explore
yeah,
things, not always thinking,
yeah,
ooh, would this be something that Jesus would approve of?
yeah.
Hmm. I'm watching Harry Potter. It seems like there's witches in this Harry
Exactly.
Potter. Maybe I
Yeah.
should be watching this. It's a bad influence. Pokemon, you know? So you start
I spend a lot of time reading Harry Potter and going to cinema and listening to so
after.
much music that I can't
Exactly.
understand.
Because I think when you're in that environment, it's kind of like restrictive, even though you've been told, oh, this is bad, this is negative, this is evil, this is of the devil. You don't really give yourself an opportunity to explore if that is even true.
Mhm.
It's just like, no, 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 I can't do that. I
Yeah,
can't go there. I can't
definitely.
watch this. I can't do.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
you're missing so much of life, you
yeah,
know, by
yeah.
just shutting your mind off to new
Mhm.
possibilities, new places, new environments, new things, new music, new films, that kind of thing. So I think that you become a more open person,
Yeah,
when you step out of that
yeah,
environment.
definitely. And the fact of discovering people believing in different things
Yeah,
and discovering beautiful people.
yeah,
I met witches, I met
yeah,
Buddhists and Hinduists and people from many different traditions and discovered many beautiful people and
yeah,
was very much enriched by it. Yeah,
yeah. Because it's like before, those would have been the people that you would have like marginalized and ignored. Oh my God, witches? No, you can't corrupt me. You worship the
yeah.
devil. Oh my goodness. You know,
Or they would have been targets,
yeah,
people to convert. Yeah.
yeah, try and, because it's all about the numbers, isn't it, in church? It's all about recruiting somebody, you know, it's almost cult like, you have to recruit
Yeah,
somebody,
yeah,
get
yeah.
them
It
in
is, it
there,
is, it is the
you know,
same mechanism.
it's exactly the same thing.
Mhm.
So did you have any kind of fears after, obviously, when you started to deconstruct and see, I'm allowed to do these things, I'm allowed to think like this. I'm allowed. Did you have any kind of fears? Like, I know kind of like the biggest fear for every Christian is going to hell,
Yeah, yeah. I remember two moments around it.
Yeah.
I remember one moment where I was so pissed off and
Mm,
so angry of what I was discovering. This core fear at
yeah.
the heart of Christianity.
Mm,
And I really said to God during my prayer, okay, if you really like that and you love to send people to hell, I'm going to go to hell because you don't deserve my attention.
yeah.
And I was meaning it.
And it's really just giving yourself that permission to say
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
Whereas before, the mindset that you were in before would be like, I can never even like, oh my God, I would never
yeah.
even entertain that. But it's like, even if I do have these thoughts and stuff, I'm still a human being. I'm still allowed to think. I'm still allowed to feel.
Mhm,
If that's the way I
mhm.
feel,
Yeah, yeah,
I can even talk to God or the universe or whatever you want to call it, and
yeah.
say this thing.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that's it. And I remember another moment that was almost funny. It makes me smile when I think back of it because I decided to leave the church
Mm.
and I had this kind of little voice intuition and I had this feeling of Jesus laughing a bit and saying, "Okay, it's good. It's the moment you do that. You are not going to live all your
Yeah.
life wanting to hold me by the hand.
Mm-hmm.
You are not the children anymore. You need to grow up and to let go of my hands and go with your own
Right.
way.
Yeah. Go
And
and
I
explore
was
life.
feeling, okay, that's a Jesus that is beginning to be interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not the one that says you can't go here, you can't watch this, you
Mhm,
can't watch that.
mhm,
You're not really
mhm,
living life. And if, religion is supposed to be all about freedom, as you said before, a lot of Christian or religious people are living a really, really limited, restricted life.
mhm.
You're not tasting the goodness of life that, the creator even wanted for you because of all these things that people have told you this is good, this is bad. It's kind of based off other people's
Mhm.
opinions, really.
That's true. Yeah, yeah.
Hmm. So after all of this, when was the moment that you thought, you know what, I'm going to write a book? Did it start with you like a
Wow.
journal or what?
Oh, that's a different story, you know. I never thought of writing a book for years, and I was uh, thinking, okay, all this Christian part of my life is behind,
Yeah.
okay, and I was, teaching meditation
Mhm.
and practicing yoga. And I met a woman who became my wife. And, life was going well and was very cool. And I was enjoying it.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize at this point how much I was still carrying a load of toxicity
Yeah.
coming back from this past. And something happened that was very, very difficult for me. I broke my leg,
Mm.
which was really a surprise because it was not, I didn't have an accident. It broke spontaneously.
Yep.
I was just walking and it broke,
Wow.
which was what was happening to me when I was a teenager,
Yeah.
because of this genetic disease.
Yeah.
And I went to the hospital, totally traumatized. And the doctor said, okay, your genetic disease is still there. And it's what caused this
Leg break.
situation.
Yeah.
So I was very angry and pissed off because it reminded me, it brought me in contact with all these memories and this supposed healing and so on. And
Mm.
the second moment that was still more difficult is 6 weeks later, when I went back to the hospital just to check if the leg was repairing properly. And the doctor said to me, no, we discovered something that was totally unexpected. You've got a bone cancer.
Wow.
So I was devastated, terrified. I was beginning to realize what it was meaning. I was not even sure to be able to survive to it. And the doctor said, okay, we have to do some further analysis,
Yeah.
but it's going to be difficult. And probably you are going to need even to have your leg amputated,
Mm.
which happened.
Mm.
And I remember going back to my home with my wife, and we were both terrified. And I remember the night after, I was the terror was all around me, and I was not able to sleep. And I began to meditate, just to try to find some relief. And I began, to breathe, inhalation, exhalation, and I don't really know why, but I began to repeat the name of Jesus, using it as a mantra.
Mm.
Probably, I don't really know why, but we had talked with my wife about it, and we were saying, okay, we need help.
Mm.
And I did that. And I had a very surprising experience. I really felt totally surrounded by such a peace
Mm.
and total surprise. I was here breathing and feeling this presence of the divine
Mm.
being with me, and with this kind of total confidence that I was not alone in this situation. And it wasn't suppressing anything of the difficulty. I was still feeling the anxiety, the terror, the anger, the grief, and so on, but I had a place from where I could embrace it
Mm.
instead of trying, to reject it and to try to stay together. And
Yeah.
I had a place from where I could face it.
Mm.
And during the days that followed, every time I was just breathing and saying this name, I was feeling the same peace, which allowed me to go through the scanner, IRM, and so on, and say to the doctor, okay, let's go for this amputation because it's my best chance to survive.
Yeah.
And going through this amputation and waking up without my leg and learning to walk again without a leg, and all this process that was very difficult. It was the worst thing that ever happened in my life and for my wife as well. So but I had this place from where I could face it.
Mm.
And this experience had a very interesting effect. It was it was the first time that I had such a mystical or spiritual experience.
Mm.
And it was very different from many of the things that I had experienced in the church.
Mm.
But it was some connections with some memories that I had of being with Jesus or feeling Jesus' love, or things like that. And I was wondering, is it something authentic
Yeah. I think
or is it a kind of relapse?
yeah.
The situation is very difficult. So I am a bit hallucinating just to be able to face it.
Mm.
Okay. So but I was feeling, okay, this is something authentic and it's truly helping me,
Yeah.
not helping me to avoid the things as before, because faith was helping me to avoid a lot of things. No, it's helping me to face my situation. And when you take a stone and you pull it away and the light comes and you see all the little worms and disgusting insects crawling in panic because of the light.
Yeah.
And I began to reconsider my religious history
Mm.
in the light of what was happening to me. And that's when I began to discover very clearly what I call in my book the toxic Jesuses.
Mm.
I was seeing them crawling in panic. And it was Jesus, the magician, Jesus, the misogynist, Jesus, the fanatic, Jesus, the enabler of abuse, Jesus, the abuser. A lot of expressions, religious masks of Jesus
Mm.
that were promoting all this oppression, all this repression, all this fear, all this toxicity that I was seeing in my past experience. And I was beginning to, to discover in my own life these toxic residues of my evangelical upbringing. I was beginning to discover the fatalism, my tendency to accept passively what was happening to me. I was beginning to discover the resignation, the this taste for suffering and this kind of fascination to death, that is so much expressed when we begin to talk about the cross and the blood of Jesus, and this idea that we should pay something to have the right to exist,
Yeah.
and a lot of different things that are expressed through this expression, the toxic Jesuses.
Mm.
And I had the opportunity to go to a group of therapy with my wife, which helped me very much to elaborate these things.
Mm.
But it was really a very intense moment during the 2 or 3 months that followed my amputation, where I was seeing all the pieces of the puzzle coming together, and I was beginning to see the big picture. And the book is really born from that moment.
Mm.
And I needed, for myself to begin, I needed to really to elaborate and to give full voice to all the abuse I had suffered.
Mm.
And writing it, I began to think, okay, I need to share it because I know so many people who have been abused the same way, maybe in less and maybe sometimes in more dramatic ways. And I have been myself a perpetrator of this abuse because I've been a pastor. And even if I wasn't so extreme as other people I've heard, or okay, I was perpetrating some of its abuse. So I need to contribute to the to help people to open their eyes, and maybe if this book can contribute for some people in their deconstruction process, and to reclaim some of their life energy and
Yeah.
the ability to go to a healthy spirituality, because it's I think spirituality is a great thing and very interesting, and it can really help people to live better.
Yeah.
But it can be so toxic in the same time. Whatever the religion, it's not only Christianity.
Oh no.
Every religion can be totally toxic,
Yeah.
and even every spirituality can be totally
Of
toxic.
course.
So, I wanted to contribute to help people face this toxicity the same way that I had to face it, and find how to build your own free, life sustaining, healthy spirituality.
Yeah. That's actually beneficial for you. I really
Hopefully.
love that analogy of lifting up the stone and all the
Yeah,
toxic Jesuses are running around.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I love that. So I know like a lot of probably I would say a lot of religious people can kind of feel like superstitious when something bad happens to them. Did
Yeah.
you ever feel at a certain moment, like when you broke your leg, that oh, it's because I left the church. Maybe this is like my
Mm,
payback, or maybe God is trying to punish me or something.
yeah,
Maybe I should go back to them. So all these bad things will stop happening to me. Did you ever have any kind of thoughts like
yeah.
that?
It's interesting because I had this experience very quickly,
Mm,
and it helped me. It made it was I was very confident that even if this kind of thoughts and feelings could come, it was uh, expressions of these toxic Jesuses.
mm.
It was
It's not real.
it was no question for me that
Yeah,
it was toxic.
yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
And you mentioned earlier that obviously you have also been a perpetrator of spiritual
Mhm,
or religious abuse, as I think we all are, because we're kind of encouraged even from children to like call people out and tell
mhm,
people, who's
mhm.
spiritual or not, who's doing the right thing, who's being a good follower of Jesus and stuff like this. So even a
Yeah.
child can even be, a spiritual abuser, we're kind
Ah,
of
yeah,
taught
of
to do
course.
that.
Definitely. Yeah,
Calling
yeah.
people like you're not saved, you're going to hell if you're not saved, and this kind of stuff. And it's like that's the way to kind of recruit people by shaming them,
Yeah,
guilting them, making
yeah,
them feel something is wrong with you because
yeah.
you're not following Jesus Christ. So what kind of, based on all the kind of Jesuses that you mentioned from your book, what kind of Jesus were you?
Wow.
Toxic Jesus.
Hmm. One was very important was Jesus the magician.
Mm,
Jesus the magician, who expect things to come from above.
yeah.
It's not me who have to do things. Jesus was expecting things to come from his father, and he was doing a lot of miracles.
Mm,
And I was very much influenced by that because when something difficult was happening, uh, I was expecting Jesus to fix it.
yeah.
And it was one side of the coin of Jesus the magician, this expectation of miracles.
Mm.
But very often, most of the time, if not all the time, miracles don't happen. So there is another face of the coin.
Mm.
And if Jesus doesn't fix it, if God doesn't fix it, it means that it is his will.
Yeah.
So we have to to submit to it with fatalism and resignation.
Mm.
So expectation of miracles and fatalism and resignation, both sides of this toxic Jesus, the magician,
Yeah.
which was very present. And it was something about the Jesus who loves death and suffering as well. I had this kind of idea that we had to suffer.
Mm.
Yeah.
It's that kind of that inherent when they say, Jesus died for me, I can never pay the price, I'm
Mhm.
forever in debt to Jesus,
Mhm.
that kind of thing. So,
Yeah,
I'm inherently not a good person, really. I have to
exactly.
prove
Totally.
all my life, I have to prove
Yeah,
it
yeah.
to Jesus that I'm worth it.
And that's something terrible because we are brought up into this uh, idea that we are flawed, that we are totally corrupted by sin. So we spend our life to learn to repress our deepest impulses
Mm.
and intuitions and intelligence and emotions, so on and so on. So we totally fuck up our inner compass.
Mm.
And that's something I discovered after leaving the church. I had no more any inner compass, because we have something into us that says, okay, that's good for me.
Hmm.
That's the way I want to go.
Yeah.
And I had used all my energy to every time this is good for me, to repress it
Yeah.
and to replace it with, okay, what is the Bible saying? What is the pastor saying? What is my father saying? And so on, you see?
Ah.
So I needed years to reclaim some access to my intuition, to my to find my north again, you know.
I love that. I really,
Yeah.
really love that.
And this idea of sin and of us being totally flawed
Mm.
uh, is really something that hurts this part of us.
Yeah. Because, like,
And
no
that
matter how
leaves
much you
some
try.
people very disoriented when they leave the church
Yeah.
because they didn't learn how to behave, how to decide for themselves
Themselves, exactly.
without referring to external influences or authorities.
Somebody else's belief,
Yeah, yeah,
the Bible,
yeah, yeah,
praying
yeah,
about it, that kind of thing,
yeah.
when sometimes we know the answer. Did you struggle with that when you left the church initially, like decision making? Or did you just say, you know what? Fuck it, I'm gonna do what I want now?
Yes, I would say that I struggled a bit with it, but it was delicious to discover this freedom.
Yeah.
But it took me years to become aligned with my truer self again,
Yeah.
you know, because I fucked up a lot of things during the first years, and I made a lot of stupid choices, but it was okay. I needed to do it, and I needed really to do my own experiences. But little by little, I began to say, okay, this is okay for me. This is not.
Mm.
These things that you have to learn when you are a child and a teenager, and that hopefully your father and mother are going to help you to experience because they help you to be okay with yourself.
Yeah.
I never had the opportunity to do that, and I had to do that in my adult years, and it was probably more difficult and more painful in some moments, but it was delicious to little by little regain and reclaim this ability to be connected with myself and to be aligned and to find my own values and my own sense of life, and to this ability to drive my boat in the good direction.
Yeah, that's really good to explore, actually. So obviously, kind of growing up in the church and adopting their mindset, and becoming a pastor, really living that token Christian life. you know how, obviously you're a parent. How do you think that you would parent your children now, as opposed to the way that you would if you were still in that environment?
Uh-huh.
Because I'm sure it's like totally different. You mentioned, like, your parents not really giving you those
Mhm.
tools to actually think for yourself, to actually do some critical thinking, follow your intuition, and really develop that in a strong way. That
Mhm.
you're just doing what feels right to you. You're just
Yeah.
doing following the path that's, like, you feel aligned to.
Hmm.
How do you think that you'll kind of help your children to live that kind of life, as
Mhm.
opposed to, like, oh, is this what my dad says is good, or I have to follow this set of rules,
Yeah,
or
yeah.
you know
I would say, we we are more examples than our our example speaks louder.
yeah.
Our life speaks louder than what we can say to our children.
Hmm.
So I don't think I would do many things differently,
Mm,
because my children were still quite young when we left the church. They were below. Let me remember. They were less than 12 years old. So
okay.
okay, I think they would have benefited of a father who would have been more integrated, more aligned,
Yeah.
more peaceful,
Mm,
more uh, healthy human.
yeah.
That's the main point. Yeah.
Yeah. So you
And
mentioned that your kind of mission with the book is just to kind of reach people who maybe have been through a similar experience to you, right?
I wouldn't say a mission, but it was something that was in my heart, something that I was hoping to be able to share.
Yeah, to
Yeah.
kind of make sense of it all. Like, this
Yeah,
is
yeah,
my
that's true.
story.
Yeah,
This is what
yeah,
happened to me. If you can identify with these kind of toxic Jesuses
yeah,
in your life
yeah,
or in your church or whatever, you know,
yeah.
absolutely. I've also written a book which I'm trying to edit at the moment.
Wow,
Yeah.
what's the name of the book?
It's going to be called Soul Destruction, Falling for the
Uh-huh.
Narcissist. Yeah,
Wow.
because I actually kind of went through two kind of abuses simultaneously. I was
Uh-huh.
being abused by a narcissist in the house, and then
Hmm.
obviously narcissistic leaders, in
Yeah,
church,
yeah.
alleged prophets and stuff like that,
Right.
giving false prophecies and things
I
like
can see
that,
that. Yeah, yeah,
performing miracles and all the rest of
yeah.
that. So that's going to be in my book as well. So I'm kind of
Wow.
explaining, how did I kind of get into a relationship with a narcissist and not know? How did I do that? And then obviously be in this cult, that's
Uh-huh.
calling itself a church. It's calling
Uh-huh.
itself a church, but it's really a cult. And
Yeah.
again, still not know. So I just felt like at the end of that entire experience, my soul was actually destroyed, you
Yeah.
know? That's
I
why
can
I call it
imagine it.
soul
Yeah.
destruction.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah, and it's kind of similar to you. Just after leaving, I was just like, I want nothing to do with the church. I just need to just be my do not invite me to Sunday service. Do not invite me to anywhere. I'm not coming. I don't want to know. Don't send me scriptures. Don't tell me to read the scripture. I don't want to know. Period. Period. You know? And then kind of warming up to, I wouldn't say religion again anyway, but it's more like just giving yourself permission to take information, because there's a lot of good stuff in the Bible. There is a lot of wisdom in the Bible, you know, and a lot of other religious texts. But
Mhm.
it's the way that people will take those scriptures and holy books and actually package it for you
Yeah,
that is like, you know, doom,
totally.
literally. By the time they've packaged it and put it at your door, it's like, oh my goodness, I have to take all of this. This is how I have to live my life. You know, it's
Mhm.
like very, very demanding environment, I
Yeah,
think. So
yeah.
for me, I was just happy to like just be away from that environment again. I did lose a whole lot of, you know, I'm saying, you know, people to not invite me to church and stuff, but I had no friends anyway to invite me to church in the first place because everybody in the church that I'd left behind, nobody wants to talk to me. I'm seen as like the devil, the
Mhm.
one, the sheep that got away, the evil sheep. The devil has, you know, influenced her, take over her
Mhm.
mind, that kind of thing. So I was very, very isolated after, but I wouldn't regret it at all, you know, leaving. I think it was just something that was necessary for my soul to do,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know,
yeah.
step away from that environment and just really discover who I am, you know, not who I have to be or who I think I have to be, you know, because that's
Mhm.
what it was, who I think I have to be, you know, by following these rules. You know, I'm a good person if I do this. I'm a good
Mhm.
person if I do that. I'm going to heaven if I do this. I'm going to hell if I do that. When it's not so total, you know,
Mhm.
in life, nothing is just black and
Mhm.
white. You know, these people are going to heaven because they prayed, you know, and these people are going to hell because they didn't. It's not like that. You know, I'm getting to know I'm nowhere near as, you know, spiritual as I'd want to be, but I'm definitely on a spiritual journey. You know, after, you know, detoxifying myself from
Mhm.
you know, a toxic faith, I would say.
And I see that you are doing that with a lot of determination and intelligence.
Yeah. Yeah, it's absolutely necessary. But, you know, my kind of I'm going to call it mission anyway, is to really give people permission to do so as well.
Mhm.
Like when I see your posts on social media, I'm almost like, oh, did he say that? You know, did he say that? Because there's so much like, even the title of your book, can I just say as well, like, you know, toxic Jesus. Oh my God, how dare you? You know, how dare you
Mhm.
call Jesus toxic? You know, a lot of, you know, maybe religious people would be repulsed by how would you even put that in the same sentence, you know? But
Mhm.
it's really giving people that permission that here is all the information in life. Here is so many religions. Here are so many stories and, you know, mindsets and stuff. And you can literally just pick from whatever feels good to you. You don't have to follow a set of rules. There is no, I need to behave like this or I'm not going to heaven. Just be yourself, you know, give yourself to permission to do that. Even if you do have abusive leaders, don't, you know, kind of shy away and say, oh, I'm not going to call him out because he's a man of God. Well, who told you he was a man of God? You know,
Mhm.
did you meet God? Did God tell you that this guy was the man of God?
Yeah, yeah,
You know, because I
yeah,
think
yeah,
there's a lot of like self-appointed men
yeah,
of
yeah,
God. I
totally.
just
Yeah.
see it as maybe a like a monetary gain to,
Yes,
you know, power.
self-appointed and meeting a lot of people who need strong figures to
Yeah,
depend on,
exactly,
yeah,
exactly. You
to
know,
submit to. And some people are looking for their abusers because they are so insecure in themselves,
um,
and it's such an inner work
yeah,
to begin to be able to put these boundaries and to become able to protect yourself from
exactly.
it. Yeah.
Because I grew up in a single parent home. So I
Mhm.
always promised myself as a child, oh, I never want my child to feel like this. I always want to give my children like a mummy and daddy at home, that kind of thing. And I felt like, you know, I let this prophet choose my husband for me and tell me, this is your husband, you know? And I felt like, okay, him really? But because I thought like maybe it's a safer option to
Mhm.
listen to somebody that's in the faith,
Yeah.
somebody that's, you know,
Yeah,
older
yeah.
than me, wiser than me, you know, spiritually more connected to God than me. And I thought, okay, maybe it's a safe bet because I don't want to make a mistake. So maybe I should listen to him to tell me who is going to be my husband, to tell me if I should
Oh,
marry
yeah,
this person, And that was literally the worst thing in my life, because
so
my
sad. Yeah.
intuition was literally like, this is not your husband, literally slapping me in the face. I was having dreams. I was like seeing things like even just about him that was like, this guy is crazy. But because, this guy had told me that, okay, you have to marry this guy, this is your husband. I thought, I had to do that. So it's really, as you said, looking for your abuser. You're literally saying, I need you to tell me what to do. I need you to order me around and control my life, because I can't do this, by myself. I don't have the tools.
It requires a lot of courage
Yeah.
to face it and to speak like you do.
Yeah. And that's what I want to do. Just give people permission to do that. If there's
Mhm.
something in the Bible that is like a contradictory, you have the right to say that. That's okay. If you
Yeah.
think some part of the religion is a bit, abusive, you have the right to say that. If you want to step away from the religion and live your life and just, you know, without Jesus or whoever it is that you're following, your yoga teacher or whatever, your spiritual guru that you've been
Of course.
following,
Yeah,
your cult leader, whoever it is, your
yeah.
imam, whoever it is, that's okay for you. And that's kind of like my message, by speaking about the
Yes.
abuse of spirituality, the abuse of religion, and that kind
Reach
of
it,
thing.
sister.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Well, I think we've had a wonderful interview today. So I'm gonna kind of bring it to a close now. Is there anything else that you
Perfect.
want to
No,
say?
no, I was very happy to meet you and to hear your story, very inspiring and much respect to you.
Thank you. Much respect to you too. I'll be ordering your book tonight, actually. I might just
Thank
do that
you.
when I get off this call. Thank you so much.
Let me know what you think about it.
I will. I will definitely be wanting
And,
to find out what kind of toxic Jesus that I was.
and I would be interested in reading yours. Let me
Yeah,
know when
I'll let
you.
you know. 100%. 100%.